My name is Ted Neward. I work at ThoughtWorks, and one of the things that I've been noticing over the years as I go to various conferences, both in the States and here in Europe, is that all of the attendees, everybody who comes to one of these conferences, is genuinely looking for answers to the same question, which is, what is the next big thing in our industry? And notice I have big thing trademarked. If you use that phrase, you owe me a quarter. Okay? Just so we're clear. Just so we're clear. I have to make money somehow. I have no idea. It sounded good as a title. Anna thought, great, let's bring him to Poland. Any questions? Turns out that we stand on the threshold of a renaissance of programming languages, that there is a huge amount of interest going on right now in terms of languages, in terms of using them, making use of them inside of your daily job, your day job, the things you do at work, building your own custom languages, the discussions around domain-specific languages, DSLs, as well as language-oriented programming. And just in general, exploring a lot of interesting and new concepts within the language space. There's been a lot of new ideas that have emerged over the last couple of years, such that, you know, we can realistically talk about making money with languages. How many people are into making money? Yeah, it's okay. You guys are capitalists now. You can all put your hand up. Right? That changed about 20 years ago, so we're all good. Yeah. Historically, the programming languages world has been divided into two very separate and distinct camps, two very separate and distinct worlds that have sort of flirted with these ideas and these concepts. The first are the practitioners. People who actually use programming languages to get real work done. People who go in at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock and stay till 5 o'clock or 21 o'clock or 23 o'clock or all of that. How many of you are one of those? You actually have real... The rest of you are just here because you heard there were free donuts? What? No? Most of the people who come to a professional conference like this are people who genuinely use these languages to get stuff done. You have a day job. You have a boss, a manager. He's a pointy-haired boss. You guys get Dilbert in Polish, right? Yes? No? Yes? Good. Because otherwise that would be a completely clueless reference. You are interested in getting problems solved, in getting work accomplished, in meeting the deadlines that are handed down to you from your clueless idiot boss. Right? We need to have this application. We need to build an application that will be able to, for example, I don't know, be able to display graphical pictures of the employees within the company, maybe a short video clip. This all needs to be done over the web. We need to make sure that it has, high fidelity to the local network, and we need to have it by next week. Go. How many of you are working on one of those projects right now? Just out of... Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah. That's why you go to the conference. Please tell me how to do this, please. And we are interested in getting these problems solved quickly. We are interested in getting these problems solved, period. Right? Because in some cases, there are going to be certain issues, certain ideas, certain features that your boss or your users are going to come up with that you're going to be like, oh man, I'm not quite sure how to do this except by writing piles and piles and piles of code. But at the end of the day, what you are trying to do is you are trying to solve somebody else's problem. Somebody else has come to you and said, we'd like an application that does X, and your job is to do X. Right? This is not something that you would do if you had the choice. This is not something that you sit at home going, oh, cool, I'm off of work. It's time for me to build a new line of business application. This is going to be so much fun. I'm going to have my friends over. We're going to have a LAN party. We're going to build like a distributed Oracle cluster. This will be cool. You don't do that, right? Maybe you'll build utilities for your own use, or maybe you'll contribute to an open source project. You are focused on business applications when you're at work. Agreed? The other side of the world is the academic community. And at least in the States, when you talk about academics, you get this vision of these very old men. They're all men, by the way. I don't know why, they just are. And they're sitting around inside of their office, and their office is typically, wall-to-wall books, most of which were published before 1960. They haven't actually done anything in industry since about 1960. They're still convinced that COBOL is the best programming language in the world. And they're teaching university students how to write code in the business world. This sounds like progress to me, doesn't it? How many of you want this man's job? Hell yes, because when's the last time he did any real work? We already said 1960, right? 48, 50 years ago. Point is, the academics, when they sit down, when academics get together to talk about programming languages, they'll bring up a slide with a whole bunch of Greek symbols on it. It'll be the abstract representation of a new type system for a programming language based on a union of the lambda and the pi calculus with a little bit of the iota calculus thrown in just for good measure. And they'll sit around and they'll stare at this slide and they'll go, oh, yes. I see what you're doing here. But you notice that you actually have a typo. That Greek symbol is upside down. This is what they do. They are focused on an entirely different class of problem. They are thinking about the problems that we work with at sort of a meta level. They are thinking about ways to try to solve these problems more efficiently, more concisely, more effectively, or in some cases being able to solve these problems at all. They are focused on the tools and the languages in particular that we use. They're not necessarily focused on the actual problems that we're trying to solve. And it's interesting because in just about every other industry, the guys who teach at university are revered and respected. Think about that for a second. If you go to a teaching college, if you go to a medical college, such as the facility where we are now, the guy who is the head of the department, he has respect. People look up to him. He has to have earned this pedigree. He has to have done something in his career. He has to be a really good surgeon if he wants to get to the head of the surgical college, etc. He has to be really bright. He is looking at cutting-edge new ways to save lives. And we go, oh man, you're really smart. Or in the legal industry, lawyers, the people who teach, positions at Harvard University in the United States are handed out not to just the lawyer who couldn't make it in the courtroom. Who's doing that? They're not handed out to the guy who can't make it in the courtroom. They're handed out to the guy who's a former Secretary of State, advisors to the president. Really, really famous and powerful people get these positions. What do we do in computer science? Well, if you haven't actually done anything in 40 years, well, clearly you're no good to us, so let's make you a teacher.